In a small, quiet town surrounded by green fields and tall trees, life moved at a slow, peaceful pace. People knew each other by name, and everyone had their own routines. On one sunny afternoon, a young boy was riding his old bicycle down a dusty country road. The boy lived with his mom in a modest house just a few miles away. His bike wasn't fancy. It had a squeaky pedal and a patch on the seat, but it was his favorite way to get around. The boy loved exploring the countryside. He'd often stop by the creek to skip stones or sit under a tree to watch the clouds drift by. But today, something unusual caught his attention. Up ahead, he noticed a shiny car parked on the side of the road. A woman stood beside it, looking frustrated as she stared at one of the tires. Her phone was in her hand, but from the way she kept sighing and shaking her head, it seemed like she wasn't having much luck getting help. Curious, the boy slowed down and came closer. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft but friendly. The woman looked up, surprised to see him. She gave a small smile and said, "I'm fine, but my tire's flat and I don't know how to fix it." The boy tilted his head, studying the situation. He didn't think twice before offering to help. "I can do it," he said confidently. You see, the boy had learned how to change a tire from his dad during one of their weekend projects. It wasn't something most kids his age knew how to do, but he was proud of the skill. The woman, grateful for the offer, handed over the tools from her trunk. With steady hands, the boy got to work. He loosened the bolts, jacked up the car, and swapped out the flat tire for the spare. All the while, the woman watched in amazement. When he finished, she thanked him warmly. "You saved me," she said, her eyes lighting up with relief. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." The boy simply shrugged, brushing dirt off his hands. "It's no big deal," he replied. "Anyone would have done the same." Little did he know, this simple act of kindness was about to set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. As the woman drove away, waving goodbye, the boy hopped back onto his bike and continued on his journey. He didn't think much of what had happened. In his mind, helping someone in need was just the right thing to do. But the woman couldn't stop thinking about the kind-hearted boy who had come to her rescue. She felt inspired by his generosity and wondered if there was more to his story. That evening, after returning to her hotel, the woman sat down with her laptop. She typed notes into a document, jotting down details about the boy and the encounter. As a journalist, she was always searching for stories that highlighted the goodness in people. This meeting felt special, like it was meant to happen for a reason. Determined to learn more, she decided to visit the town again. The next day, she stopped by the local diner, where everyone seemed to gather for coffee and conversation. Over a slice of pie, she struck up casual chats with the locals, mentioning the helpful boy she'd met. Someone mentioned his name, and soon enough she found herself knocking on the door of a cozy little house on the edge of town. The boy's mother answered the door, surprised to see a stranger standing there. After explaining why she was there, the woman was invited inside. They sat at the kitchen table sipping tea and talking about the boy, his dreams, his challenges, and the struggles of raising a child in a community with limited opportunities. By the time she left, the woman had pages of notes and a heart full of admiration for the family. Over the following weeks, the woman couldn't shake off the memory of the boy and his selflessness. She began to see him as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in tough times, kindness could shine through. Inspired, she returned to the town with a plan. She wanted to share his story with the world, not just because it was heartwarming, but because it had the power to inspire others. This decision marked the beginning of an incredible journey, not just for the boy, but for everyone whose lives he would touch in the years to come. What started as a chance encounter on a lonely country road was about to grow into something far greater than anyone could have imagined. The woman returned to the small town a few weeks later, this time with more than just curiosity in her heart. She had a camera crew with her, ready to capture the story of the boy who had changed her tire and unknowingly sparked something bigger. The idea of being interviewed made the boy nervous. He wasn't used to attention, let alone cameras. "Why would anyone care about me?" he asked his mom when she told him about it. His mom, however, saw this as an opportunity. She knew how hard her son worked every day, juggling school, chores, and dreams that sometimes felt too big for their small town. "This could open doors for you," she said gently, encouraging him to give it a try. After some thought, the boy agreed. He trusted his mom, and deep down, he hoped this might bring him one step closer to achieving his dream of becoming an engineer. The interview took place under the shade of a large oak tree near the school playground. The woman asked him questions about his life, what he liked to do in his free time, what inspired him to help others, and what his goals were for the future. The boy spoke honestly, sharing how much he loved tinkering with things, whether it was fixing bikes or building little gadgets out of scrap materials. He talked about wanting to go to college someday, but admitted it felt impossible because they didn't have the money. When the segment aired on television, it struck a chord with viewers across the country. People were moved by the boy's humility and determination. Messages of support poured in from all over, along with donations to help fund his education. Strangers sent letters, sharing how his story reminded them of the importance of kindness and perseverance. For the first time, the boy realized that his actions had touched lives far beyond his own community. With the newfound attention came opportunities that changed everything. A local nonprofit organization reached out, offering the boy a spot in a scholarship program designed to mentor students from underserved areas. They provided tutoring, access to advanced learning resources, and even arranged internships with companies in nearby cities. It was like a door had opened where there had only been walls before. Every Saturday morning, the boy attended workshops where he learned about robotics, coding, and design. His teachers were amazed at how quickly he picked up new concepts. What stood out most, though, was his eagerness to share what he'd learned with others. During breaks, he'd gather his classmates and explain tricky ideas in simple terms, making sure everyone understood. This generosity earned him respect among his peers and admiration from his mentors. The woman who had started it all stayed in touch, checking in regularly to see how things were going. She visited whenever she could, bringing updates about the impact his story was having. Schools in other towns began using his interview as part of their lessons, teaching kids about empathy and ambition. The boy never expected any of this. He just wanted to help someone fix a flat tire. But now he found himself inspiring others. As the years passed, the boy grew into a teenager with a clear sense of purpose. He balanced schoolwork with extracurricular activities, always pushing himself to do better. His grades improved, and he became known not just for his intelligence but also for his willingness to lend a hand. Whether it was helping a classmate understand math problems or volunteering at community events, he carried the same spirit of kindness that had defined him since childhood. One summer, the nonprofit organization arranged for him to intern at a construction firm specializing in sustainable housing. It was his first real taste of what engineering could look like as a career. He spent hours observing engineers at work, asking questions, and learning how designs came to life. By the end of the internship, he was certain this was what he wanted to do with his life. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when the weight of expectations felt overwhelming. The boy often wondered if he was doing enough, if he deserved the opportunities he'd been given. On those days, his mom would remind him of how far he'd come. "You've already done so much," she'd say. "Just keep going." And then there was the woman, the journalist who had first brought his story to light. She became more than just a supporter. She became a friend. Whenever doubt crept in, she'd remind him of the ripple effect his kindness had created. "You helped me that day," she'd tell him, "and now you're helping so many others." By the time he graduated high school, the boy had become a symbol of hope for his community. He gave speeches at local events, sharing his experiences and encouraging younger kids to dream big. "If I can do it," he'd say, "so can you." His words resonated deeply, especially with children who came from similar backgrounds. They saw themselves in him, a reminder that no matter where you start, anything is possible with hard work and belief. The scholarship program continued to support him as he prepared for college. When acceptance letters arrived, he chose a university known for its strong engineering program. On move-in day, his mom hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "We're so proud of you," she whispered. Standing nearby was the woman who had played such a pivotal role in his journey. She clapped and cheered as he stepped onto campus, ready to embrace this new chapter. College proved challenging, but the boy thrived. He joined clubs, participated in research projects, and landed a prestigious summer internship at a tech company. By the time graduation rolled around, he had multiple job offers waiting for him. But instead of chasing wealth or fame, he made a choice that reflected his roots. He accepted a position at a firm focused on creating sustainable infrastructure in rural areas, a decision driven by gratitude and a desire to give back. Today, the boy, who is now a grown man, is a respected engineer whose work has transformed countless communities. Yet, despite his success, he hasn't forgotten where he came from. Each year he visits schools in his hometown, sharing his story and motivating students to pursue their dreams fearlessly. And every time he speaks, he makes sure to mention the woman whose flat tire changed everything. That woman, now a celebrated journalist and advocate for underprivileged youth, reflects on that fateful day with pride. What started as a chance encounter turned into a ripple effect of positivity, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Together, they remind us all that we are connected, and that sometimes, changing one life can change countless others in ways we never imagined. The boy's journey wasn't just about personal growth, it was also about the people he inspired along the way. As his story spread, it began to touch lives in ways no one could have predicted. Teachers in his school started noticing a shift in their students' attitudes. Kids who once seemed disinterested in learning suddenly became curious and motivated. One teacher even told the boy, "You've lit a fire in them. They see you as proof that they can do big things too." Word of his achievements traveled beyond the town. Other schools invited him to speak at assemblies, hoping his words would encourage their students to dream bigger. At first, the boy felt out of place standing in front of large crowds. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, and public speaking didn't come naturally to him. But he quickly realized that sharing his struggles and triumphs made a difference. He spoke honestly about the challenges he faced, like not having enough money for college or feeling unsure if he was good enough, and how he overcame them with hard work and support from others. One day, after giving a talk at a middle school, a shy girl approached him. She held a crumpled piece of paper in her hand and said softly, "I want to be a doctor, but I don't think I can." The boy knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Why not?" he asked gently. She shrugged, looking at the floor. "We don't have much money," she admitted. He smiled warmly and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Neither did I," he said. "But here's the thing. You don't need money to start dreaming. You just need belief and determination. And trust me, there are people out there who will help you if you let them." Her eyes widened as she absorbed his words. Before leaving, she handed him the crumpled paper. It was a drawing of a stethoscope and a heart. On the back, she'd written, "Thank you for believing in me." Moments like these reminded the boy why he kept sharing his story. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about showing others that they weren't alone. Every time he saw someone light up with hope, he felt a sense of purpose that went deeper than any award or accomplishment ever could. As the years went by, the woman who had first told his story remained a constant presence in his life. She visited whenever she could, bringing updates about the impact his journey continued to have. Together, they brainstormed ways to reach even more people. They organized community events where kids could learn practical skills like fixing bikes or building simple robots. These workshops weren't just about teaching technical abilities. They were about instilling confidence and showing young minds what they were capable of achieving. One summer, they hosted a camp for children from underserved areas. The goal was to introduce them to fields like engineering, science, and technology through hands-on activities. The boy took charge of one session, guiding kids as they built miniature bridges out of popsicle sticks. When the bridges stood firm under weight tests, cheers erupted and the kids beamed with pride. For many of them, it was the first time they'd felt truly accomplished. At the end of the camp, a boy around 10 years old pulled the journalist aside. "Do you think I could build real bridges someday?" he asked earnestly. She looked at him, then glanced over at the young man who had once changed her tire. "Absolutely," she replied. "If anyone can show you it's possible, it's him." Despite all the progress, the boy still faced moments of doubt. College was tough, and there were days when assignments piled up and deadlines loomed. Sometimes he wondered if he belonged in such a competitive environment. During those times, he leaned on the lessons he'd learned growing up: perseverance, resilience, and the importance of asking for help when needed. His professors noticed his dedication and offered guidance whenever he struggled. One professor, in particular, became a mentor to him. "You have a gift," the professor said during a meeting. "Not just for engineering, but for inspiring others. Don't lose sight of that." Those words stayed with him, fueling his drive to push through difficult times. By the time he graduated, he had earned not only his degree but also the respect of everyone who knew him. His final project, a sustainable housing design aimed at helping rural communities, caught the attention of several companies. Offers poured in, each promising exciting opportunities. But instead of choosing the most lucrative option, he decided to stay true to his roots. He joined a firm that focused on creating affordable, eco-friendly infrastructure for underserved areas. It wasn't the highest-paying job, but it aligned perfectly with his values. On his first day, he walked into the office feeling both nervous and excited. This was the moment he'd been working toward for years, a chance to use his skills to make a real difference. The boy's story continued, to inspire long after he stepped into his new role. News outlets featured him in articles and documentaries, highlighting how far he'd come since that sunny afternoon by the roadside. People marveled at how a single act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, impacting countless lives. Back in his hometown, the ripple effect was undeniable. More kids were pursuing education and careers they once thought were out of reach. Parents talked about how proud they were to see their children believe in themselves. Even the local government took notice, investing in programs to support young talent in the area. The woman who had started it all watched it all unfold with a mix of pride and gratitude. She often thought about that day when a flat tire brought her face to face with a boy whose kindness changed her perspective. "It's funny," she said during an interview. "Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the biggest transformations. That's what happened here." For the boy, every success was a reminder of where he came from and the people who believed in him. Whether it was his mom, his teachers, the nonprofit mentors, or the journalist who shared his story, he knew none of it would have been possible without their support. And so, he carried that gratitude with him wherever he went, using it to fuel his mission of helping others. Years later, when he stood before a crowd of eager students, ready to share his journey once again, he always ended with the same message: never underestimate the power of kindness. You never know how far it might go or whose life it might change. The boy's journey didn't stop at just inspiring others. It also taught him the value of staying grounded. As his story spread, people began to see him as a symbol of hope and resilience. But for him, life was still about the small, everyday moments that made it meaningful. He never lost sight of the fact that he was once just a kid riding a squeaky bike down a dusty road, trying to help someone in need. One day, while working on a project to design affordable housing for rural areas, he found himself sitting across from a group of engineers who were twice his age. At first, he felt out of place. These were experts with decades of experience, and here he was, a young man fresh out of college. But as the meeting progressed, something shifted. His ideas weren't just heard, they were valued. The simplicity of his approach, rooted in practicality and empathy, resonated with everyone in the room. After the meeting, one of the senior engineers approached him. "You remind me of why I got into this field," the man said with a smile. "It's easy to get caught up in the technical side of things, but you bring humanity back into it." Those words stuck with him. They reminded him that success wasn't just about building impressive structures. It was about creating solutions that truly served people. As months turned into years, the boy's work began to leave a lasting impact. Entire communities, transformed because of the projects he led. Families who had lived in makeshift homes now had sturdy, safe places to call their own. Schools that once struggled due to poor infrastructure were rebuilt, giving children better opportunities to learn and grow. Every ribbon-cutting ceremony felt like a victory, not just for him but for everyone involved. But what mattered most to him were the stories he heard from the people whose lives had been touched. One elderly woman approached him after a community event, tears streaming down her face. "My grandson used to study by candlelight," she said, clutching his hand. "Now, thanks to your work, we have electricity in our home. He can read and dream without limits." Moments like these filled him with a sense of fulfillment that no paycheck or award ever could. He often thought about how far he'd come since that day by the roadside. Back then, he couldn't have imagined the ripple effect his kindness would create. Helping someone fix a flat tire seemed so ordinary, yet it had sparked a chain reaction that changed not only his life but countless others. It was a powerful reminder that even the smallest acts of generosity could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The journalist who had first told his story remained a close friend and confidant. She continued to document his journey, writing articles and producing segments that highlighted the importance of education, mentorship, and community support. Together, they launched initiatives aimed at helping more young people pursue their dreams. Scholarships were established, workshops were organized, and partnerships were formed with organizations dedicated to uplifting underserved communities. One initiative that stood out was a program called Dream Builders. It brought together students from different backgrounds to collaborate on real-world projects. The goal was simple: to show them that engineering wasn't just about numbers and blueprints, it was about solving problems and improving lives. Each year, teams competed to design innovative solutions for challenges faced by local communities. Winners received funding to turn their ideas into reality. During one such competition, a team of high school students designed a low-cost water filtration system for villages without access to clean drinking water. When the boy handed them the trophy, he saw the same spark in their eyes that he once had, a mix of excitement, pride, and determination. "This is just the beginning," he told them. "Keep dreaming, keep building, and never forget why you started." Despite all the achievements, the boy stayed humble. He knew that success wasn't something to hoard, it was something to share. Whenever he visited his hometown, he made it a point to connect with the younger generation. He'd sit with them under the same oak tree where he'd been interviewed years ago, listening to their hopes and fears. Sometimes he'd share stories from his own life, the struggles, the doubts, and the moments of triumph. Other times he'd simply listen, offering advice when asked. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a teenager sat beside him, looking troubled. "I feel like I'm not good enough," the boy confessed. "Everyone expects so much from me, but I don't know if I can live up to it." The engineer nodded, understanding exactly how he felt. "Let me tell you something," he said softly. "No one has it all figured out. Not even me. What matters is that you keep going, even when it feels hard. And remember, you're not alone. There are always people who believe in you, even if you can't see them right now." The teenager looked at him, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I needed to hear that." Years later, the boy, who was now a man, found himself standing on stage at a national conference. The audience was filled with educators, policymakers, and industry leaders, all eager to hear what he had to say. As he looked out at the sea of faces, he felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. So much had changed since that sunny afternoon when he stopped to help a stranger. Yet, at its core, his message remained the same. Kindness is a choice. He began, his voice steady and sincere. It doesn't cost anything, but it has the power to change everything. That day, I chose to help someone with a flat tire. I didn't know it would lead to this moment or any of the incredible opportunities that followed. But I do know this. Every act of kindness creates a ripple effect. You might not see it right away, but trust me, it's there. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're all connected. Your actions matter, your choices matter. And the seeds you plant today will grow into something bigger than you can imagine. So, whether it's helping someone in need, believing in a child's dream, or simply being kind, never underestimate the impact you can have. When he finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, cheering and clapping. But for him, the real reward wasn't the standing ovation. It was knowing that his words might inspire someone else to take that first step toward making a difference. As he stepped off the stage, the journalist who had been there since the beginning greeted him with a warm hug. "You've come so far," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "And you've touched so many lives along the way." He smiled, feeling grateful for the journey, and for the woman whose flat tire had started it all. The man's journey wasn't just about personal success or professional achievements. It was also about the relationships he built along the way. Every person he met, every story he heard, and every life he touched became a thread in the tapestry of his own story. He often reflected on how those connections had shaped him, teaching him lessons he couldn't have learned any other way. One of the most meaningful relationships he formed was with a group of teenagers from his hometown. They were part of a mentorship program he helped create, a safe space where kids could come to learn, share their dreams, and find guidance. At first, they were hesitant around him, unsure of what to make of this man who seemed so accomplished yet so approachable. But as weeks turned into months, trust grew between them. He spent hours listening to their stories about struggling in school, dealing with family issues, or feeling stuck in a town that offered few opportunities. Instead of offering quick fixes, he simply listened. Sometimes he shared bits of his own experiences, showing them that it was okay to feel lost or uncertain. Other times, he encouraged them to focus on small steps rather than big leaps. "Progress doesn't always look like a straight line," he'd say. "Sometimes it's messy and slow, but as long as you're moving forward, that's what matters." One evening, after a particularly lively session, a quiet teenager stayed behind. She had rarely spoken during meetings, but tonight, she seemed ready to open up. "I want to be an artist," she said softly, pulling out a sketchbook filled with vibrant drawings. Her voice trembled as she added, "But everyone says I should pick something more practical." The man smiled warmly, flipping through her sketches. "These are incredible," he said sincerely. "Art isn't just about drawing pictures. It's about telling stories, sparking emotions, and connecting with people. If this is your passion, don't let anyone tell you it's not valuable." Then he paused, thinking carefully before continuing. "But here's the thing. Being practical doesn't mean giving up on your dreams. Maybe you can combine both. Have you ever thought about designing buildings? Architecture is art that people live in." Her eyes widened with possibility. For the first time, she saw a path where her creativity and ambition could coexist. Over the next few months, she began exploring architecture, attending workshops, and even shadowing professionals in the field. The man checked in regularly, cheering her on every step of the way. When she eventually landed an internship with a local firm, she ran straight to him to share the news. "This wouldn't have happened without you," she said, hugging him tightly. "Thank you for believing in me." As the years went by, the man realized that his impact wasn't limited to individuals. It extended to entire communities. The projects he worked on weren't just about constructing buildings. They were about creating spaces where people could thrive. Whether it was designing schools with better lighting and ventilation, or building community centers that brought neighbors together, his work was rooted in one simple idea: infrastructure should serve humanity, not the other way around. One project that stood out was a library he helped build in a rural area. Before its construction, the closest library was miles away, making it nearly impossible for children to access books. The new facility became more than just a place to borrow novels. It became a hub of learning and connection. Kids gathered there after school, seniors attended book clubs, and families participated in workshops on topics ranging from health to financial literacy. On the day of the grand opening, the man stood at the entrance, watching as people streamed inside. A little girl tugged at his sleeve, holding up a colorful picture book. "Is this mine to keep?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. He knelt down, smiling. "Yes, it's yours," he replied. "And guess what? There are hundreds more. Where that came from." She squealed with delight, running back to her mother to show off her treasure. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned out, a woman approached him. She introduced herself as the principal of the nearby elementary school. "This library is going to change everything for our students," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "They've never had access to resources like this before. Thank you for making it possible." He nodded humbly, knowing that it wasn't just his effort, it was the result of countless people coming together to make it happen. Despite all the progress, the man still faced challenges. Some projects hit roadblocks due to funding shortages or logistical issues. Others encountered resistance from people who didn't understand the importance of sustainable design. During those tough times, he leaned on the lessons he'd learned growing up: resilience, patience, and the power of collaboration. One particularly difficult project involved rebuilding a bridge that connected two small towns. The original structure had collapsed during a storm, leaving residents stranded and businesses struggling. The man knew how vital the bridge was, but securing the necessary funds proved harder than expected. Meetings dragged on, and frustration mounted. Just when it seemed like the project might fall through, the journalist who had been with him since the beginning stepped in. She wrote a compelling article about the situation, highlighting the struggles of the affected communities and emphasizing the need for action. Within days, donations poured in from across the country. Local officials, inspired by the overwhelming support, fast-tracked the approvals needed to move forward. When the bridge finally reopened, it was more than just a piece of infrastructure. It was a symbol of unity and perseverance. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the mayor handed the man a plaque in recognition of his efforts. "We couldn't have done this without you," he said. The man accepted it graciously, then turned to address the crowd. "This isn't my achievement," he said firmly. "It belongs to everyone who believed in this cause and worked tirelessly to make it happen. Together, we proved that no challenge is too big if we face it as a team." Through it all, the man remained deeply connected to his roots. Whenever he returned to his hometown, he made sure to visit the places and people that had shaped him. He'd stop by the diner where locals gathered, chatting with old friends and catching up on town gossip. He'd swing by the school playground, watching kids laugh and play, remembering the simpler days of his own childhood. One afternoon, as he walked past the spot where he'd once changed a flat tire, he paused, overcome with emotion. So much had changed since that sunny day, yet the essence of who he was remained the same. He was still the boy who believed in kindness, hard work, and the power of community. That realization filled him with gratitude for the journey, for the people who had supported him, and for the stranger whose car trouble had set it all in motion. As he stood there, lost in thought, a familiar voice called out, "Hey, isn't that you?" Turning around, he saw the journalist walking toward him, camera slung over her shoulder. She grinned mischievously. "Still reflecting on that fateful day, huh?" He laughed, shaking his head. "How could I not? It changed everything." She joined him, looking out at the road. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "that flat tire wasn't just a random event. It was the start of something beautiful, a reminder that even the smallest moments can lead to extraordinary outcomes." He nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. No matter where life took him next, he knew one thing for certain: kindness mattered. And sometimes it only took a single act of generosity to spark a chain reaction that transformed lives, including your own. As the man grew older, his focus shifted from building structures to nurturing people. He realized that while bridges and buildings were important, the true foundation of any community was its people. His work became less about designing blueprints and more about planting seeds, seeds of hope, confidence, and possibility in the hearts of those around him. One summer, he organized a camp for kids interested in engineering and design. It wasn't just about teaching technical skills. It was about showing them how creativity and problem-solving could change lives. The camp took place in an open field near his hometown, with tents set up for workshops and activities. Kids from all walks of life came together, some eager and excited, others hesitant and unsure. On the first day, he gathered everyone under a large canopy. "This week isn't just about learning," he told them. "It's about discovering. What makes you curious, what gets you excited, and how you can use that to make a difference." Then he handed each child a small notebook. "Write down your ideas, no matter how big or small they seem. By the end of the week, we'll turn one of them into reality." The kids dove into the challenge with enthusiasm. Some designed tools to help farmers work more efficiently, while others dreamed up ways to bring clean water to remote areas. One group even came up with a plan to build a playground using recycled materials. At the end of the week, they presented their projects to the entire camp. The energy in the air was electric, buzzing with pride and accomplishment. When the man announced the winning idea, a solar-powered charging station for phones in rural villages, the winners erupted into cheers. But what struck him most was the look on the faces of the other participants. They weren't disappointed, they were inspired. For the first time, many of them saw themselves as creators, innovators, and problem solvers. That realization was worth far more than any trophy. The man's influence extended beyond the children he mentored. Adults in the community began seeking his guidance too. Whether it was for advice on starting a business, pursuing education, or simply finding direction in life, he never turned anyone away, knowing firsthand how isolating doubt and uncertainty could feel. One evening, a young woman knocked on his door, visibly nervous. She explained that she wanted to go back to school, but didn't know where to start. "I've been stuck in the same job for years," she admitted. "It pays the bills, but it doesn't fulfill me. I want to do something meaningful, but I don't think I'm smart enough." He listened patiently, then shared his own struggles with self-doubt. "You don't have to be perfect to start," he said gently. "You just have to start to become better. Take it one step at a time. Apply for one class, meet one teacher, read one book. Before you know it, you'll be further along than you ever imagined." Encouraged by his words, she enrolled in a night course at the local college. Over the next few months, he checked in regularly, celebrating her progress and offering support when things got tough. When she graduated 2 years later, she invited him to the ceremony. As she crossed the stage to receive her diploma, tears streamed down her face and his. Afterward, she hugged him tightly. "You gave me the courage to try," she said. "Without you, I wouldn't be here today." He smiled, feeling humbled. "You did the hard work," he replied. "All I did was remind you of what you were already capable of." Despite his growing reputation, the man remained deeply connected to the values that had guided him since childhood: humility, gratitude, and kindness. He often reminded himself that success wasn't measured by awards or accolades, but by the lives he touched and the legacy he left behind. Every time he saw someone overcome adversity or achieve their dreams, he felt a sense of fulfillment that no material wealth could match. One winter, he received a letter from a boy who had attended one of his workshops years earlier. Now a teenager, the boy wrote about how the experience had changed his life. "I used to think I wasn't good at anything," the letter read. "But after meeting you and hearing your story, I realized I could be whoever I wanted to be. Now I'm studying to become a teacher because I want to help kids like you helped me." The man read the letter over and over, overwhelmed with emotion. It was moments like these that reminded him why he kept doing what he did. His impact wasn't confined to the present. It rippled through generations, shaping futures he might never see. Even as his health began to decline with age, the man refused to slow down. He continued visiting schools, speaking at events, and mentoring young people. His energy may have waned, but his passion burned brighter than ever. "There's still so much to do," he'd say whenever someone suggested he take a break. The world needs dreamers and doers now more than ever. One crisp autumn morning, he stood before a crowd of students at a high school assembly. His voice was softer than usual, but his message carried the same weight it always had. Life is full of challenges, he began. Some days, it might feel like the odds are stacked against you. But remember this: every obstacle is also an opportunity. Every failure is a lesson, and every act of kindness has the power to change someone's life, including your own. As he finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. Students lined up to thank him, sharing their dreams and fears. One girl lingered behind, clutching a sketch pad. "I want to design spaceships," she said shyly, "but I'm scared I'll fail." He smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Failure isn't the end. It's part of the journey. Keep dreaming, keep trying, and trust that you'll find your way. And if you ever need someone to believe in you, I'll always be here." Years later, long after the man had passed away, his legacy lived on. Schools named scholarships in his honor, communities erected plaques to commemorate his contributions, and countless individuals carried forward the lessons he had taught them. But perhaps the greatest testament to his impact was the way people continued to pay it forward, spreading kindness and inspiration wherever they went. The journalist who had documented his journey reflected on it all during an interview. "He showed us that greatness isn't about fame or fortune," she said. "It's about making a difference, one person, one moment, one act of kindness at a time." And he proved that even the smallest gesture can set off a ripple effect that changes the world. Her words echoed the truth that the man had lived by. Kindness matters. It connects us, uplifts us, and reminds us of our shared humanity. Whether it's changing a flat tire, believing in a child's dream, or simply listening when someone needs to be heard, every act of compassion leaves a mark. And sometimes that mark grows into something extraordinary, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. The man's legacy wasn't confined to the projects he built or the people he directly mentored. It lived on in the stories they told and the actions they took. Long after he was gone, his lessons echoed through generations, reminding everyone who heard them that kindness, determination, and belief in others could change the course of lives. One of those stories came from a young woman named after the town where it all began. She had grown up hearing about the boy who once helped a stranger with a flat tire and went on to inspire so many. Her grandmother, a retired teacher, often recounted how his workshop at the local school had sparked her interest in engineering. "He didn't just teach us how to build things," she'd say. "He taught us how to believe in ourselves." Years later, this young woman found herself standing in front of a classroom teaching kids about renewable energy. On her desk sat a photo of the man surrounded by students during one of his workshops. It served as a constant reminder of why she chose this path: to pass on the same spark of inspiration he had given her grandmother. Her favorite part of the job was watching her students' eyes light up when they solved a problem or completed a project. One day, a shy boy lingered after class, holding a handmade windmill made from popsicle sticks. "I want to make these for my village," he said softly. "We don't have electricity there." The teacher smiled, seeing a reflection of the man in the boy's determination. "Start small," she advised. "Dream big. And don't let anyone tell you it can't be done." In another corner of the country, a community came together to rebuild a library destroyed by a storm. They called it the Kindness Project, inspired by the man's philosophy that every effort should serve humanity. Volunteers poured in, some skilled carpenters, others novices eager to help. Among them was a teenager who had attended one of the man's camps years earlier. He led a team of peers, guiding them through construction tasks while sharing stories about the man who had believed in him. When the library reopened, its walls were adorned with quotes from the man's speeches. One stood out above the entrance: "Every act of kindness has the power to change someone's life, including your own." Visitors paused to read it, feeling a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. For many, it became a place not just of learning but of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when people work together. Even strangers whose lives the man never touched directly felt his influence through the ripple effect of his story. A social worker in a bustling city stumbled upon an article about him while researching ways to motivate underprivileged youth. Moved by his journey, she incorporated elements of his philosophy into her work. During group sessions, she encouraged kids to focus on their strengths rather than their struggles, just as the man had done. One evening, a girl in her program approached her, clutching a crumpled drawing of a hospital. "I want to be a doctor," she said hesitantly, "but I don't think I'm smart enough." The social worker knelt down, remembering the man's words. "You don't need to know everything right now," she said gently. "Just take the first step. Trust me, the rest will follow." Years later, when that girl graduated medical school, she sent a letter thanking the social worker. In it she wrote, "You reminded me that I'm capable of more than I think, and because of that, I'll spend my life helping others see their potential too." As decades passed, the man's story continued to spread, carried forward by those who refused to let it fade. Documentaries were made, books were written, and podcasts explored the profound impact of his simple act of kindness. But perhaps the most powerful tribute came from everyday people who embraced his message in their own lives. A mechanic in a small town hung a sign in his garage that read, "Changing tires, changing lives." When customers asked about it, he shared the story of the boy who had changed a flat tire and, in doing so, transformed countless futures. Inspired, they began looking for opportunities to pay it forward, whether by helping a neighbor or volunteering in their community. Even, businesses adopted principles rooted in the man's values. A tech company launched a program to provide affordable internet access to rural areas, citing his solar-powered charging station idea as inspiration. At the launch event, the CEO quoted him, "Progress isn't just about innovation, it's about inclusion." Decades after his passing, a memorial was erected in his hometown, a statue of a young boy kneeling beside a car, changing a tire. Beneath it was an inscription, "From a single act of kindness, a world of possibilities unfolded." People came from far and wide to visit, leaving notes of gratitude at its base. Some thanked him for inspiring them to pursue their dreams. Others credited him with restoring their faith in humanity. On one such visit, the journalist who had chronicled his journey stood before the statue, tears streaming down her face. She thought back to the day she met him, the frustration of her flat tire, the relief of his help, and the awe of discovering his story. "You did it," she whispered. "You showed us that even the smallest moments matter." Nearby, a child tugged at her sleeve. "Who is he?" the boy asked, pointing to the statue. She knelt down, smiling. "He was a boy who believed in kindness," she replied, "and because of him we learned to believe in each other." The man's story serves as a timeless reminder that greatness isn't measured by wealth or fame, but by the lives we touch and the ripples we create. His journey proves that anyone can make a difference, whether it's through fixing a flat tire, mentoring a child, or simply being kind. Kindness connects us. It reminds us that we're all part of something bigger. And sometimes it only takes one moment, one choice, to set off a chain reaction that changes the world. So, the next time you see someone in need, remember the boy who changed a tire and ask yourself, what ripple will you create today?